Okay, on today's video, we're going to talk about how to target people online with banner ads or display advertising, however you want to call it, that were at recently someplace, some landmark out there, some business, some public facility, and use that information that you have about the people being in that certain place that's relevant to your business, being able to target them with a banner ad or ad in general for that person when that person leaves at some point in the future. Could be right away, could be a while after, but how actually, first of all, that indeed is possible, and how to actually use it to make money. I'm going to have several examples of how I showed you I made money doing this before in several different markets. I can tell you it works, and it doesn't matter if you're a service or a product business or B2B or B2C. It's all working the same, pretty much respectively, with some small differences between them. And how to actually do this for yourself, so you could walk away with actual actionable information on how to do this for yourself after the video. So as usual in my videos, I'm going to go over a quick background about what this technology is, how that it works. Of course, on this one especially, since it's kind of wonky, people wonder, how the heck do you target somebody who was just at a college or was just at a restaurant later on with an ad, and then go into the mechanics behind how it's done specifically in terms of how you execute on it, and then some different options for you doing it for your own business here. So anyway, it's very, very profitable, as the title says. No clickbait here. And we're going to be able to target people on a micro proximity level, in that, the people that are in a very, very small, tight niche area, we can make sure that if they've been there at some point in the past, we can market to them, and if not, no ads will be shown. So anyway, getting started here. Usually targeting is when you do display advertising or online advertising, when you're not talking about like Google search advertising or something, or Bing search advertising, where people are just telling you what they want outright. Targeting users based upon just one targeting criteria, which most people, do that are starting out, and which of that one thing that they use to target somebody with a banner ad, whether it's on Facebook or Google Display Network, which basically is the rest of the internet there, where you can see banner ads there, it's Google Display Network, are targeting people by their interest. So if they were interested in web hosting, they're targeting people when they're searching for web hosting or recently have in the past, and that's all they're doing, which can work in some instances. Display advertising is hard to get working when you're talking about marketing it to brand new prospects, totally cold prospects, and getting them to buy at a rate which you can already make money, including and after all your expenses are considered, 8-to-1, 10-to-1 return. That one targeting option, though, that you use as a targeting criteria for your campaigns usually isn't good enough, and for amazing results in many markets, you need more than that. You need to have more than one targeting criteria layered on top of each other. So in other words, they must have went to a college, and they must have searched for XYZ later on for me to have to be able to be willing to spend money targeting some person on Google's display network of the hundreds of millions of ad impressions a month that they offer on their market, to be able to do what I would call amazingly well, like you would probably want, or just to make it work in general in a lot of markets as well. So respectively, and as I mentioned on a lot of different videos, having success with display advertising, whether you're doing a Google Display Network or Facebook ads, comes down to, can I narrow down the targeting is the hardest part. Of course, assuming you know how to make an ad, as long as you're somewhat sufficient doing that and somewhat sufficient with the landing page. It's harder than making it, but respectively, if you already know the fundamentals of how to make a decent ad at a landing page already, let's just assume that. The hard part is getting the targeting right. getting the targeting narrowed down far enough so that in your targeted audience, at least 1% of those people would strongly consider what you're selling if and when offered to them. Otherwise, you're spending more and more money, or a lot more money, targeting people that just has no chance of buying, and the more of that gets done, the more expensive the per lead cost and per sale cost is going to be. If you're e-commerce, obviously just sales. If you're generating leads, well, leads and sales, of course. And so we're always trying to narrow it down further. My point here was that you don't have to stick to one targeting criteria and just testing this one, and if this doesn't work, go to the next one, and so on and so forth. You can combine. One way you do that is through Google Display Network, and you can set up custom audiences where you can layer on them. They can do 5. You can have it so that they have to do 5 things, or your ad doesn't show up for that person. There's some variations of this when you run Google search advertising as well now. It's been the case where if they search for red shoes, if they're not also a high school graduate or haven't looked for, information on how to be hip at some point in terms of your clothing styles, then the ad won't show because they know how important this stuff is. But on Facebook, it's the same thing. You can target people. It could be this, or it could be also this and this. So they have to do more than one. But with that, you have to go as far as it's going to take to get that 1% saturation rate that you're looking for. Because in general, that's about what it takes to make money with the display advertising. I've set up hundreds of campaigns now. And just coming from somebody with that kind of experience, this is what you need to do. If you have a bad landing page or ad and don't know how to do that yet, nothing what I'm going to show you here works. I just want to make sure you know that. But going in, for somebody who's already sufficient, the by far hardest part is going to be finding that special medley of combination or audience targeting that just perfectly works for your situation. Location targeting makes that very, very easy, because ultimately somebody who's done something in real life out in the public, that person is a lot more qualified than something that you've seen somebody do online, because people search for stuff online all the time for all different reasons. Lots of tire kickers. If they went to a golf course, you damn well know that person's a golfer. You can target people online, and if somebody searched for the competitor's site, but it's not nearly like the quality of being able to I'm trying to think of a better word for this, but basically everything comes down to the certainty level. So the certainty level that you have somebody that's qualified, given that they physically went somewhere, is a lot higher than somebody that looks like they're that customer or was interested in that because they searched for something in the past. But with all that, going back to what I was kind of mentioning before, even if you could target people in the real life, in the real world, in real life, where somebody's went to a restaurant and I'm a restaurant owner, a lot of times that's just not good enough all by itself. A lot of times you'll still need another option, and to be able to have that perfect audience that gets you a 1% or greater saturation rate of an audience that you can target that's going to have that many customers in your audience so that it's effective. They call it pay-per-click advertising on the when you're running display ads or on Facebook. But the higher the rate in which the people click, the lower it's going to cost per click, and the lower it costs per click for your same ad, the higher the ROI is going to be. So that's why we need as high a saturation rate as possible. On Google Display Network, I can pay 10 cents a click in a lot of markets, whereas the average person, because they don't have they don't target nearly as sophisticated as I'm talking about here, and also the ad offer is usually not that great. They're not actually offering the person specific information of why what they're offering is better and why they should do it right now, that they'll pay $1 per click. So that makes the difference between a make or break on the campaign. But they're certainly not layering on different requirements for their targeting. And that's just not a common thing out there. Whereas if you do it, you could be the one person in your market that makes it work and actually does get display advertising to work. So in a lot of markets, it's difficult enough. Nobody has it. So don't feel discouraged if you tried it and couldn't get it to work already before. So anyway, with all that said, you can target people that were at a specific physical location in the real world, and then you can offer them something. There's three main things that you can go with, directions you can go with that. You can offer them something that, if that person's at college, you sell backpacks, a lot of people that go to college buy backpacks, you could pitch them with a backpack. If you are targeting somebody at a college again, and you actually have another college in the area, you can tell them to come to my college instead. Or the third way is you're targeting a person at a college again, a certain one, and you can tell them that an online program you have is better, and therefore you should do this instead. So ours is better, ours is different, and you're going to need this stuff anyway. So that's the kind, in terms of using this user location information, that's how you're going to use it. So it can be, with that, you have those basic options. So what you're going to do, and there's data brokers out there who have the user ID information. They have the user ID, they'll give you a list of user IDs, which the user ID is a specific signature that a mobile phone has on it. That is collected by other people that collect that information. They may have an app that they run. They get the user ID who use the app, and then they use that app to track you where you're going. And so therefore that's how they get their user ID for somebody who, for instance, is at a college. Okay, the other way that it's done is if you get on the public Wi-Fi at a college, and then the internet service provider will rent that data out to other parties, which then rent it to you. You can, you can target people who, been at the college or whatever by getting a list of all the user IDs for the people that's been at the college in the last 30 days thereof, or could be last week. You could, mix it up. Depending on your market, you can time, how long out it's been since the event happened. But then you can take that information, you go to Google or Facebook, and then you could say, hey, I just want to, if one of these user IDs that you also have information on, you got the same user IDs on your end, because Google and Facebook look at the same thing, then I want my ad to show up. Given that more than half of the internet traffic's mobile now, it's enough to run all your advertising if this works basically for you. You don't have to worry about desktop, even though certainly could. And the fact that Google has cross-device targeting now, so in other words, if you target mobile, they'll let you target the same user on desktop when they're at home on their desktop device, because it's the same user ID at that point in time. Just as a side note, you can fully tap into somebody on all their devices, essentially, as long as they're logged in on Google to their same Gmail account on all their devices. But that's how the mechanics kind of works in terms of targeting somebody that was at a college, and now you want to offer something to that person because they've been at that college. And then whatever you're offering, maybe it'll be profitable as is. In a lot of markets it will be, because a geo-targeted user like that, where you knew if they were in a specific area, is so qualitative already in terms of the data that you're getting, you can make things work. But going back to what I said before, in a lot of other occasions, you need more than one criteria to determine if you're going to be able to get them on the list to market them or not. So in that case, what I commonly do here is, like, for instance, in the situation where you're targeting somebody that's at the college, if I have a course that I'm offering that's going to actually be a better alternative than the college, cheaper, better, more higher placement, whatever, then I'm going to target people that have been at that college because I know they got money and I know that they're serious about it. And then when the user starts researching online for other schools in the area, I'm immediately going to have a switch flip to where I'm going to pound them with the ads until they click on it finally. The fact that you have two things here instead of one, you're going to have a 3 times higher ROI doing that kind of thing, because ultimately you got timing in the mix now, where it's not just are they in market for it, but now they're actively researching, and now you got a person actively researching, but not just any user researching, the person that's super, super, super serious about it and has the money now. And then now you have a targeted audience that'll work. So sometimes you have to go with, two layers deep when you target user mobile IDs like this, and based upon people that have been at a certain location, sometimes not. But anyway, in terms of though, with that said, how do you make money with it? Well, if I'm going back to the college example, and then if I sell a course that's an alternative to that college for the major that the user is taking, for instance, I'm going to have an ad that shows up. If I'm going to get user IDs for somebody who's been at a specific college, and if I can do it in my market, I'm going to do it like that. And then I'm going to have an ad that says why XYZ College is not as good as ABC's school. So why University of Iowa is not as good as this graphics design school that we have. And so I'm going to make a list of all the schools, the graphic art schools, where people go to school for that in the traditional schools. And then I'm going to have an ad that says why our online program is better. And then I'm going to take them to a landing page that doesn't go to your main site and says, this program is fantastic because you get jobs just as much. It's this much cheaper. You still get this. You still get this. The college don't have this. The college remind people of the reasons why in-person schools suck. Whatever. And then you obviously then can remarket to that, because they're probably not going to be bought on just instantly like that. You'll still have to remarket to them, but now you know the person. You've got this super, super qualified user that now is aware of you. You can market to over the next 30, 60, 90, 180 days, and you probably have a high chance at getting them. But I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that for each college. Because the more relevant it is, the higher click-through rate you're going to get, and the higher the ROI you're going to get, as per what I said before. That's why I led with all these fundamentals. And so it's, instead of why XYZ College is not as good, why ZYX College is not as good. And so you're going to create a separate funnel for each school. I can tell you for sure it's going to work much, much, much better if you can break it out by school. You don't have to do that in a lot of cases to make the return that you need, 8-to-1 return or whatever you need. But you'll get about twice as good a results if you break it out, so that if you're a competitor and you want to go after that person, or in this case, it's like you're solving the same problem as that competitor, the school itself, the college itself, that you'll double your results by telling them why your solution is better than that exact school, just putting the work in to do it. But anyway, with that, you get all the user IDs for the people that were at the college, of which you're trying to steal people away from. Say in your ad and in your landing page why you're actually better than that school, why they should use your solution instead. You take that list of user IDs and you upload it as a custom audience to Facebook and Google. I recommend both places, and then you run it. People click, you're done. There's your money. There's how you make your money. So that's in general the general formula how I normally do this to make money. And in this particular, where I told you the example about the college and the design school, that actually happened. And we actually did what I was talking about here. So, people that they had to be at the college and they had to start doing research for it to work. Just to let you know, in that particular case, some cases where I've done this, it didn't have to be 2 layers deep. So I'm going to go through some different examples of different markets where I did this, and you can see how the different variations of this can basically work. So you can see what will apply for you or to you. So anyway, results from the past campaigns were micro proximity campaigns like this has worked in the past. With Geo-Fencing. Personal injury law. I talked about this in other videos. Instead of going after people who are looking for a personal injury lawyer on Google search, it's profitable, but not nearly as profitable if you can get a display campaign working, which is why even if you're doing Google search now, you should test Google display, because if you can get it to work, it can be 10 times the volume and at a higher ROI. You always start with Google because that's the easy, sure thing, even though the return's not as good, just to get till you have a base, and then I usually go display after that. But in that particular case, we did geo-targeting of people that have been near a helipad in the recent 30 days. With that, there's a good chance, obviously, that they need a personal injury lawyer, at least 1% of the people, or somebody who knows somebody who needs it, right? And then going back to what I said before, we explain why this person who is the personal injury lawyer, that's a spine that specializes in people with head and spine injuries, which are the big cases. And if you're at a helipad, you have a much higher likelihood even to have that in the first place. And so it really stood out to the person. You're getting the person that your goal should always be to your offer is something they really want to click on. Don't settle for less. But in that particular case, that was the model, the funnel. And we were generating 10 plus case opportunities there a month just from that. Okay, in the local market where they're at. Technically, you could do this nationwide, I'm sure, but that's not what they were doing. Anyway, so that's one example. A second example, Vioticals. So I also talked about this in other videos. So if you have a life insurance policy and you're about to die and you want the money from the life insurance policy that you've accumulated over the years, you can go to these special brokers that will give you the money in advance for a cut on their end, part of the money, essentially. They'll loan it to you so you can get it before you die. And in that particular case, the people who had cancer, they were likely to, one of the main customers they had. So in the physical world, where there was cancer centers, they just targeted people in those cancer centers, okay? So that was just the obvious place where there was a whole bunch of people that now for sure need this product. Maybe they all obviously don't have life insurance, but 1% will, going back to the 1% rule before. And they were generating 300 leads a month because we targeted all across the US with that, which obviously you'd want to do in that market. And just explain the concept. Hey, do you need money for your cancer treatment? You always want to be relevant to where they were at. Why this school sucks. Or, people that have been in an accident that need life lighted need a personal injury lawyer that deals with special cases that derive from that. You get my point. In this case, people that have cancer, any cancer treatment need money, That's people who got the money. Usually it was for expensive cancer treatment. That was why they were getting it, not just to have a huge party. Anyway, the next one is a funeral planning campaign. Another one in the hospital situation where somebody was in a hospice, which is the place you go before you die if you don't know it already. And with that, we targeted people how not to get ripped off by funeral homes. So a lot of people, that kind of ticked some people off, but it was effective. And so with that, you had an ebook, and then the ebook generated leads, and 50 plus leads a month from that. And that was in several different markets down in Texas. Then we also had an auto dealership. So if you're an auto dealership, you for sure should be targeting people who walked into other auto dealerships before you do any newspaper stuff, anything else. Because this is the most simple, fundamental thing that should work, because it makes sense and it does work. So, with that, that's what you're doing. If I'm selling BMW, anybody who walks into any other BMW that I'm competing against, and Mercedes, all the high-end ones that are luxury in the same class, I am going to want to blast that person with advertising. So that's what we did in a local market. And 500 leads a month plus from that. So it was a whole ton. But obviously, that's your entire customer base. And then at that point, you just have to say, are you considering Mercedes? Here's why BMW, your local BMW, why BMW is better from the local BMW owner who In the funeral case, it was how not to get ripped off by a 30-year funeral director that's local to the area. You get my point. So you can add that little spin to it, like local expert. If you're local, I recommend that because it helps the ROI, helps the click-through rate. And so the last example is taco restaurants. So this person had several taco restaurants in different cities. And so it's the same thing there. If you're in the restaurant industry, if you're a high-end Italian restaurant, if you're a low-end fast food restaurant, you niche it down. If I'm selling burgers, I'm going to want to target every person that goes to any other burger restaurant in the entire city that I have a location in. That's obviously within driving distance. You're not going to go 50 miles for a burger. You get my point. But with that, then you offer them a coupon. In that situation where you have lifetime value, where a person you don't make much on the first time, but you know that person's going to buy 50 more times because this person goes to burger restaurants, I'm giving them a burger for free just to get their butt in the door. Okay? Taco restaurants, it was similar. 50% off the first time you buy is usually good enough because then you actually know a little bit better. You have an actual customer willing to pay. That's what more so what it wasn't exactly that. I'm not going to give it away exactly, but that was pretty much what that was done there. So you can try either of those. But again, you got to have something that they really, really want to click on for this to work pretty much every time, like I'm saying it is. I'm making it look easy. If you're giving them a taco meal, the person who really, really loves tacos and buys them regularly, you need to give them half off their next meal to get their attention at a high enough rate for the advertising to pay for itself. So anyway, in general, that's how to target people by device ID and by location that they were at. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. I'll get back to every person who leaves me a question or comment about our material on this channel within a day or two. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about different topics, PPC money-making strategies. You should check those out if you haven't seen any of them, any of the other videos before. I also have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build money-making campaigns that work and that we guarantee for our clients to have to work. If you would like to see how things are done that way, go ahead and check that out as well. You may also be interested in that. But I hope you enjoyed, and good luck to you in setting up your own geolocal targeted campaign for yourself, and you should let us know how it goes if you do.